Hello! I would like to say happy trails to you. We are all planning to go outdoors in one way or another this summer, and today's session is for all of us. My name is Sean, and I'll be joined by Ontario Science Centre host and educator Heidi, coming to us live from the Ontario Science Centre. But first, I would like to begin with our land acknowledgement. While our audience may be watching from different regions throughout Ontario, I acknowledge that Heidi and I are participating in this event on land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. We are speaking to you today from the city of Toronto. We acknowledge that the land we live on is traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We know it has been a difficult time for all of us with the recent discoveries of the unmarked graves of children in British Columbia and Saskatchewan. It is a grim reminder of the atrocities inflicted on Indigenous children and their families through residential schools and other colonial institutions. And that continues today. Acknowledging the relationship to the land is an ancient practice, and today, as we discuss how to enjoy the outdoors, we express our gratitude for the opportunity to be here, and we thank all generations who have taken care of this land since time immemorial. Caring for our land, for all people and animals, starts with respecting and connecting with our environment and supporting actions that affirm this. Thank you. Now, during this event, we would love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, comments, please write them down in the chat. So Heidi, thank you for joining us today. And you're going to be sharing some tips and tricks with us to keep us safe on our hikes and outdoor adventures. So welcome. How are you doing? It looks nice and sunny out there. Hello, Heidi.
I'm actually in our nature escape area right now, which is off level 6 outdoors. And yeah, it is really beautifully lush and green here. So I am truly grateful to be here today.
Yes, and I know a lot of our viewers are going to be enjoying the outdoors soon, and they're going to encounter many plants and animals. And I think we want to learn how we should behave and conduct ourselves around the animals and plants. And in fact, I think we're going to start off with the animal, a little game, I guess.
Yeah, it's a guessing game. So we're going to play a sound cue for you, and your job is to try to figure out what it is. It's probably, I'm sure quite a few of you will know. And I'd like you to put your answers into the chat if that's available to you, so we can get some feedback about that. So anytime now.
I feel a few people are guessing duck or goose. Duck, goose.
Yeah, goose is correct. Yeah, that was to be specific, the Canada goose. And I'm sure that sound is familiar to quite a few of us. We hear it a lot in the fall, especially when they're migrating south. So yeah, we are going to discuss some of the animals and a couple of plants that you might encounter outdoors that might possibly be a little bit scary or hazardous. So there's some ways that you can deal with these. So in the case of the goose, they tend to nest they have their nests built in the spring, and then their goslings start growing. And there's a possibility that you might come across a Canada goose nest or be walking near one. And if it hasn't happened to you, it may have happened to somebody you know. They have been chased by a very angry goose. So I'm here to tell you how you can deal with that. So the geese, of course, are really good parents. They're very protective, and if they feel that you're getting too close to their nest and their families, they will start to, well, A, follow you, and then B, if that doesn't work, they will come after you. So normally you might have the urge to run or fight, and I'm telling you that maybe you should do neither. So the best strategy is to remain still, look the goose in the eye, because that communicates that you're not afraid, even if you are. The goose won't know. And then gradually move back, but use a side step to your left or right rather than straight back, away from where you think the nest is. That way the goose will not be charging directly at you, and that is a little less threatening to the goose as well. Keep facing the goose, keep looking it in the eye. If you see it lower its head and start charging you, don't run, just stay still, let it come at you. If it goes free, if it starts rising up and going towards your head, you can protect your head with your hands. And if it tries to beat at you with its wings, simply push it away. Don't hit it or kick it. You may think this is going to be painful, but if you think about it, a bird has very light, hollow bones, fairly delicate muscles, and feathers on its wings. So if it hits you, a goose's wing is not going to generally be terribly painful at all. But you may also have seen, maybe on YouTube, a goose trying to bite a person. And again, don't panic. If you look at the picture in the upper right corner, the goose has its mouth open, it has no teeth. So it's not going to leave a bite injury, but it might make you feel a big pinch. It's more likely, though, that it's going to just grab onto your clothing. So, and that's fairly easy to get away from. And the further back or further you get away from the nest, the less likely it is to follow you. So once it feels you're far enough for safety, it will stop attacking. Yeah. That's
great advice.
It's really nothing to be too scared about. I mean, I know it's easy to say that, but yeah, it's not a life-threatening situation by any means.
And Heidi, actually, we have a question from one of our YouTube audience members. Can you clap at goose? I guess to scare them off, maybe they're wondering.
I don't believe a noise tactic is going to work terribly well. Maybe if you do it fairly early, they might, and you're far enough away, they may just sort of think it's not worth their while to go after you. But yeah, I think, I don't know if that's really going to change their behavior a great deal if they're already ready to attack.
Exactly. And also they're being protective of their nest, as you said earlier. So I think it's just something to look out for.
Yeah, that instinct is pretty powerful. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And you know what? Geese aren't the only animals that we may encounter while enjoying the outdoors. There are other animals. Some of them are like slimy and slithery, and these reptiles are something some of us are a little scared of.
Oh, you don't have to be scared of them. And they're not slimy. The snake, you're talking about snakes, right?
Snakes, yes. Yeah, you're right. They're not all slimy.
They're your favorite animal, aren't they?
One of many.
Okay, well, I know there are people that are afraid of snakes, and I don't want to try to mock that at all. I don't want to make fun of that. But the snakes that we will encounter in Ontario are 99% of them are completely harmless and afraid of us. So if you look at the pictures, you're going to see two versions of a garter snake, the eastern ribbon snake and the common garter snake, and they look similar. They're skinny, they're dark, they have small yellow stripes along their bodies and small round heads, and they usually average as adults about 40 centimeters, so just over a foot long. And they are not harmful to humans at all. In fact, if you think about it from a snake's point of view, we are giants, so they don't want to be anywhere near us if they can help it. They will slither away quietly or hide if they know we're coming. If they feel they're cornered, they may bite. If they feel they have absolutely no other choice, and there is a little bit of venom in a garter snake's bite, but it's not dangerous to humans at all. It's just enough to immobilize prey that they are going to eat, like frogs. So it might be a bit painful and irritating, but it's definitely not a life-threatening situation. And they are small snakes. There's an even smaller snake that you might encounter. That's on the next slide. And that is Decay's brown snake. It doesn't even get 2 foot long. It is so small. You
Oh,
can't tell
wow.
from this picture, but yeah, they're like less than 30 centimeters when they're fully grown usually. And you can see it's light brown with some slightly darker markings, but and it will behave similarly to a garter snake. But some people may mistake it for a rattlesnake, and that's the one that I wanted to mention next, because the Massasauga rattler is the one rattlesnake in Ontario that people occasionally encounter. It's the bite. The incidences of bites are not huge in the province, but it is a small, very small possibility. Like the small snakes that I just mentioned, they are also very shy and docile, and they would rather avoid humans if at all possible. But again, if they're cornered, if they feel they have nowhere to go, for defense, they may lash out and bite with their fangs. A couple of things though, in about a quarter of the cases that are reported, the bites are not, they don't even use venom.
Oh,
how about that?
That's good. So why wouldn't they use venom if they bite? I mean, they're venomous snakes every time. That just makes sense to me.
Yeah, it takes a lot of energy for them to create for their bodies to create that venom, and they'd rather save it for the prey that they're hunting. So, I mean, I guess they figure fangs are enough. However, if you are bitten by a venomous snake, there are a few first aid things that you can keep in mind.
Yeah, like you should call 911 immediately. Get out of the striking range, and also you should let them know how it happened when you call 911, and keep the limit still as possible so that you can minimize blood flow and not allow the venom to spread to the rest of the body.
Yeah, you want to try to keep that spread as slow as possible. And like with the goose, stay calm. So just make sure the wound is cleaned with some soap and water, and that you cover it with a gauze. There are 8 health centers that have anti-venom if it's needed. So there's a very good chance that it would be delivered to you if you need it in a pretty timely way. Like the risks are minimal in terms of the dangers. So it is not normally fatal to humans unless it's left untreated for a really long time, which is almost never happens. So it's usually almost always the treatment helps pretty much immediately. So the complications are minimal. Like you're not going to get very sick from this generally.
That's great. And actually, Heidi, we do have a question from one of our viewers. They want to know, do snakes bite even if you do not disturb them, or if they do not disturb you?
The odds are very, very, I'm going to say no, because again, they would rather slither away. They would rather escape than confront any. Their snakes are non-confrontational normally, so they'll only bite, and that goes for the garter snakes as well. They'll only bite if they're really, really irritated, or if they feel they're threatened, and usually that's like it's an accidental thing. You're just wandering too close, and the snake feels it has nowhere to go. So that's usually what would happen.
Man, that makes a lot. Thanks for answering that question. I love animals, and it's better. I love knowing what to do around them now. And I know that we talked a lot about animals, but I see that beautiful background right behind you with all the surrounding plants. And that's something that we should be careful with, certain plants, when we go and enjoy the outdoors this summer, isn't it?
Yes, there are a couple of plants that I really want to talk about. I'll try to be as concise as I can. The first one is poison ivy. So we can bring that slide up. There it is. And both of the plants I'm going to emphasize today, like, I don't know, I call them the dangerous duo because they definitely can make you very uncomfortable, and they can be painful. And so I've been fortunate enough not to encounter poison ivy, but I know people who have, and yeah, it smarts, it stings very badly. So the best thing you can do is educate yourself and figure out how to identify it. So as you can see, the rhyme "leaves of three, let it be," that holds true for this. Almost always you will see those 3 leaves arranged on the plant. They're actually leaflets, and the 3 of them make up what's called a compound leaf. It can be confused for other plants though, so we could bring those up now. A few of the plants that it might be mistaken for, or that you might think are poison ivy but are not. So have a look at them, and if you can guess what any of those plants are. None of them are poison ivy except for the one in the middle.
They all look very similar to poison ivy for sure. I see a lot of leaves of 3. Yeah, that's pretty good.
So there's at least 3 plants there that do have leaves of 3, but their leaves are a bit different than the poison ivy. So let's bring up the plant names. So in the upper left corner, you see strawberry there, and that has leaves of 3, but pardon me, those leaves have very sharp, defined teeth or serrations along the edges. They're smaller generally than poison ivy, and they always grow close to the ground. And they also have very deep veins on the leaves. The raspberry is a similar leaf, but of course this is a bush that grows higher, and also has serrations or teeth along the edges. Those are not quite as deep as the strawberry, but definitely unmistakable. The trillium has obviously 3 leaves, our provincial flower. Trillium is tri, the TRI refers to the 3 leaves. But in this case, the leaves are totally smooth along the edges, and you can see that they're arranged in a way that makes them more of an equilateral triangle. They're a bit rounder than a poison ivy leaf, and they don't have that slightly folded appearance that the poison ivy leaf often has, with a strong vein down the middle. They're usually a bit darker and a glossier sort of finish to them. I don't know if that's the right word there, but they are glossier. But poison ivy isn't quite as glossy. Poison ivy may have smooth edges, may have serrated edges, usually has some leaves with one or the other or both. Always pointed at the end, not rounded. And it could grow low to the ground, but it could also climb. Oh. So yeah, beware of that. You're not always going to see it like at your ankles. So, and it loves growing in almost any kind of soil conditions. So yeah, you could encounter it just about anywhere.
So you could even brush, because it climbs, you can even brush against your arm or some other part of your body, not just around the leg area.
Potentially, yeah.
That's good to know. And now I feel more confident about IDing the poison ivy now that we know what it looks like and what to look for. But what happens if I accidentally touch it, Heidi?
Okay. So it's got this oil called urushiol, and that's a really that's very irritating to our skin. It will bring up an angry rash with little tiny blistery bumps, usually in a stripy pattern. And this is an oil, so this can spread. Even something that has not been in contact with the poison ivy could get it off something that has. So it's really important, if you get it on your skin, to wash that area as soon as possible with cool water and some soap. I did see one commenter on the internet say that they have success with dish soap because it's formulated to disperse oil. And they recommended also washing clothes with dish soap rather than laundry soap. To make sure that you're not washing them with other clothes for sure. Just separate that load. Yeah, and just whatever gets in contact with it needs to be washed as soon as possible, because that oil can last a long time and be irritating for a long time. And even if you're brushing up against the plants in the winter, it could still happen.
Oh, wow. So that's really good to know. And there's some good resources that we could find online about poison ivy. One of them is at the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry. They have a lot of great resources on these and other species of plants, invasive. But you did say that there were 2 plants that we should watch out for. Can you tell us about the second plant?
Oh yeah. Oh, we saved the best for the last year. This one, okay, so let's bring up the next slide. We can see here two plants that look similar, giant hogweed and Queen Anne's lace. And they are cousins. They're in the carrot family. So they both have those flower heads. They're called umbels. I think of umbrella, like it's an umbrella shape. The white flower clusters. Queen Anne's lace, however, is a lot smaller, so no more than about 1 meter high usually when it's adult. And the leaves are kind of fern shaped and the stem is quite skinny. And that plant can cause irritation to some people that get in contact with its sap, but it's not that much of an issue for most people. The giant hogweed, however, is the one I want to spend a little bit more time on. This one is quite a bit more dangerous, and it lives up to its name. It's definitely giant. The adult plants in the 2nd and 3rd years can grow from between 2 meters to 5 meters in height, which would be about 6 to 18 feet. Yeah, they're huge. The flower clusters, the umbels, are about dinner plate size, and the leaves are even bigger, like platter size, and they're deeply toothed. So they don't look ferny. They have deep grooves or in the leaf edge and very sharply defined teeth or serrations. The stalk is very thick and green, but it has dark red blotches on it and very small white hairs. If you brush against it or you break off a piece of the plant and get some sap on your skin, it can be very dangerous. It can cause something called phytophotodermatitis. I kind of like that word.
Say that 3 times fast.
Phytophotodermatitis. Phyto for plant, photo for light, derma for skin, and itis for ouch. So it creates a very painful sensitivity to sun exposure. And this can happen in as quickly as 15 minutes. So again, if you know you've been in contact with it, wash it with soap and water immediately, cool water. If you come across it when you're hiking or something, try to mark don't go near it, but try to mark where it is and let the authorities know, because they can come in and remove it safely. Like, they have to wear hazmat suits. And whatever you do, if you come into contact with it, do not rub your eyes, because it can lead to temporary blindness. So yeah, it's a bad one, but luckily when it's older, it's really easy to identify. So it's an easy one to keep your distance from it.
Definitely. I am going to keep my distance from there, and I hope everyone keeps an eye out for that giant hogweed. Now that we know what to look for, and we know that they're giant, definitely stay away from that one. In fact, Heidi, we have a quick question. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with this plant. Do you know what a vigilant crepe is? It's they're wondering if that's a good plant.
Vigilant part. What now?
A vigilant crepe. I just saw it in the comment section, but maybe it was spelled differently.
I am not sure.
Oh, Virginia creeper. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Virginia creeper.
Oh, I thought they said.
Yes, we forgot to mention. I forgot to mention that when we were talking about poison ivy. Yeah, that one is native to Ontario. It like its name suggests, it's a ground cover. It spends a lot of time in the ground, but it can climb. There's a vine, and it's in the grape family, and it has leaves of 5. So leaves of 5, you'll still be alive. I don't know if that helps. But that one's totally safe.
Perfect. And I'm glad you told us to look out for these ones, but there are also other plants that disrupt the balance of our ecosystems that they live in, even here in Ontario. Can you tell us about some of those plants?
Yeah, let's talk about invasives a little bit. So these are not going to be dangerous to people or bodies, but they are going to be a hazard in your garden, and they are definitely getting to be a problem in the natural wild spaces, even in the city. So this first one is dog strangling vine. It's a dramatic name, I know. It's also known as black swallowwort. It does not strangle dogs, but it sometimes can twine up onto low branches of bushes and look like they're getting strangled. So I guess that's where it got its name from. And yeah, this one can develop really thick root mats, which can choke out native species, and it changes the soil chemistry, and basically can successfully take over an area until it is basically the only plant remaining in that space. And that we've seen that happen around the Science Center. And so it is a big problem, and it can become a big problem. I'm seeing it in gardens, so in my neighborhood. So to identify it, you're looking for leaves that are somewhat ovalish in shape, but with a pointed tip. The leaves grow on a spindly stem that looks like it could flop over at any moment, and they are in pairs. So they will grow in pairs opposite each other, and if the stem is going this direction toward the camera, the next pair are perpendicular, and then so on and so on up the stem. As you can see in the second photo, they have long, skinny seed pods that produce very fluffy seeds that are very good at dispersing in wind. They're related to milkweeds, so the monarch butterflies sometimes mistakenly lay their eggs on them, and the caterpillars won't survive. So there's numerous reasons why we want those out of our gardens.
Yes, no, and if you identify them, I know something you've told me in the past is to tell my neighbors and friends about them, correct?
Yes, definitely. Spread the word, not the weed.
I love it. But you know, this is not the only invasive species. There's one that sounds very tasty, and I don't know what it is, but it's garlic mustard.
Yeah, is it garlic? Is it mustard? It's kind of both, but it's actually a mustard. But it smells like garlic, especially when it's young. And yes, it was one of the plants that been brought here by settlers as a food crop. Not a big one, but it is edible. You can eat the leaves raw in a salad or cook them, and by all means do if you find them. The less garlic mustard, the better. But like the dog strangling vine, it also can create a thick mat of roots under the soil, so that other plants cannot grow. And it also changes the soil chemistry. It gets rid of nitrogen, and it gets rid of a fungus that helps roots of plants absorb water and nutrients. This one, to identify it, you look for the leaves that are kind of heart-shaped, but have very defined serrations or teeth along the edges. So pretty easy to see in the photo there. And in the springtime, they have those little clusters of tiny white flowers. They are one of the earliest flowering plants, and so that's another advantage, competitive advantage. They can get sunlight in the early spring before the shade begins.
Now, Heidi,
Yep.
I'm just curious, do you notice any of these invasive species behind you, or any of these plants that you were talking about? Or?
Yeah. In fact, there's garlic mustard that's finished flowering, and there's dog strangling vine right beside it. They're kind of like battling it out for dominance. I don't know who's going to win. But yeah, we have it invading our natural spaces here around the Science Center too, which is unfortunate.
Now we have another question actually from one of our YouTube viewers, and they're wondering, how do you when you were talking about the dog strangling vine, how do you remove the dog strangling vine?
Good question. You can't just do one thing, but it depends on whether it's sort of definitely got a big patch that's established, or whether it's just a few plants that have started appearing. If it's just a few plants, if you're not able to dig out the root really thoroughly, because if you leave behind too much of the root, it will just bring up twice as many plants. If you can do that, dig it out. But if you can't, just snip it off very close to the ground. And if you do this repeatedly over time, it's less likely to come back. And that's the same for garlic mustard. But if it's a big outbreak, it's a multi-pronged approach, like with cutting, with mowing, with pulling, and chemicals as a last resort. And it's really wise to do your homework. There are some great tip sheets from a number of websites specific to Ontario even, including the Ontario Invasive Plants Council, that give you some advice on how to do that. And you can also contact authorities that are responsible for the natural spaces around you, and they may be able to help out.
Thank you, Heidi. And actually, before we run out of time, there is one more invasive species that we do want to talk about, and that's this one over here. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, the Ontario Invasive Plants Council put this on their most unwanted list and calls it the vine that ate the South because it's called Kudzu. It's well established in southern United States, and as you can see, it blankets everything. It also produces a really thick root network, so it chokes out a lot of plants. It smothers them, it shades them, so they can't photosynthesize. And as you can see, it even covers things like cars and power towers, electrical towers. It's so bad that it can even take down electrical grids. So this is something that the Ontario government really wants to keep in check. There's a patch of it that's been identified in Leamington, just on the shore of Lake Erie or near Leamington. So hopefully that is it for that plant in Ontario. But if you do find that, or if you do suspect it's in an area, check the leaf. It's rounded instead of toothed like a grape leaf. And then contact the authorities, let them know.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I mean, this is all valuable information, and our viewers, I think, are going to benefit so much from what you taught us about the Canada geese, from also the snakes, and all these invasive plants. And just to remind everyone, make sure you do your homework. I mean, in our next slide, we want you to share that you need to check out your sources, and we have many resources you can go to. One of them is the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry. They are a fantastic resource for invasive species and how you should conduct yourselves near wild animals for tips and tricks. Also, you can find links to these and other great resources in the YouTube description at the bottom of this screen. So I just want to remind all of you that we do have many live events and virtual events throughout the summer for the Ontario Science. It's going to be Family Trivia Night, which will be on Friday, July 9th. You can register at ontariosciencecenter.ca. Also, our next live stream event will be the Science of Roller Coasters in partnership with Canada's Wonderland on Wednesday, July 14th at 2 p.m. as well. Also, it's going to be so much fun, thrilling. So don't forget to follow us on our social channels and on our website, ontariosciencecenter.ca, for more activities and resources. Heidi, I want to give you a big thank you once again for all this helpful information to keep us safe. And I think I would like you to have the last word.
Okay. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Don't care about the clouds when we're together. Just sing a song and bring the sunny weather. Happy trails to you until we meet again.